Dan Orlovsky came out on ESPN and said his comp for Shedeur Sanders is Tua Tagovailoa. Take a listen to this.
I'd tell you he needed to be in an offense similar to what Tua is like in Miami, or what Brock Purdy's like in San Francisco, or a little bit what Joe Burrow is like in Cincinnati, point guard. And Tua is my comp in many ways for Shedeur Sanders. Great ball placement, rhythm and timing, super smart, anticipatory thrower. And so I like the fact that Las Vegas has Chip Kelly. He's been around a ton of different places, a ton of different offenses schematically. If I had to pick one outside of those 2 and 3rd picks, it would be the Raiders for me.
Interesting. Coach Fred, your thoughts on Dan Orlovsky's comp for Shedeur Sanders, comparing him to Tua Tagovailoa? Go ahead.
Did he say Las Vegas?
He did say Las Vegas, Coach Fred.
Okay, write that down. I heard someone, and they tipped me, and it got me to thinking. I'm gonna throw one at you. I don't see Tua. I see a young Andy Dalton.
Yeah, okay.
Can do just enough with his feet.
Here's what I'll say before you go on. So Tim Hasselbeck, I had Jeff Nato on last week, and we broke this down. Tim Hasselbeck actually compared Shedeur Sanders to Andy Dalton, and the Prime Sexuals lost their mind on Twitter. But nonetheless, it is an interesting comparison. I don't necessarily see Shedeur compared with Andy Dalton. I've said this for a while, and I broke this down last week. My comp for Shedeur Sanders is a smaller, doesn't have as big of an arm, but Geno Smith. I've seen this for a while, the last about year and a half. I see Shedeur like a Geno Smith. Geno Smith, in my opinion, has a top 10 arm in the NFL. I don't think Shedeur has as big of an arm as Geno, but similar type player, not super athletic, but able to use his feet to make plays, keep the eyes down the field, make a throw or a scramble here. But I see Shedeur, my comp hit for him is Geno Smith, not as good of an arm though. But Coach Fred, your thoughts on that?
I like that. But, the only reason I didn't go Geno is because if you remember when Geno first came in, you just kind of said it, not as strong as arm. But Geno has a real live arm. He can really speed it up. He can get out his hands quick. He's always had that coming from West Virginia. He's always had that quick release. And I just don't see that quick release with Shedeur as far as like that just, flick of the wrist. And then my thing with Andy Dalton was early Andy Dalton could do just enough with his feet, but had all the mechanics to make every throw and could get it out of his hands, was really smart. And that's kind of where I see him in that framework. Not going to run, but can run. Will force it, will not force it, but can zip it in there. Smart enough not to put the ball in harm's way more times than not. Can throw the deep ball, the intermediate ball. That's my comparison for him. Geno, if you go back and watch Geno back at West Virginia coming out, man, Geno get that thing out of his hands like that. I just don't see that boom with him. Not to say he doesn't have it. I just haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I don't – people forget. Like, I was just going to mention this with Andy Dalton. People got recency bias. 10 years ago, him and the Bengals had A.J. Green, Sanu, Tank Johnson, who's been on the show, was playing on that team. That team was legit in the playoff. Like, people forget, man. Andy Dalton had a serious, legit NFL career. And so your comp for Shedeur is Andy Dalton. Tim Hasselbeck, last week we broke this down and said something very, very similar to you, I'll quote it. He says, you're looking for elite traits, and he just doesn't have those. Interesting, Coach Fred. You and Tim Hasselbeck, a younger brother of Matt Hasselbeck here, seem to be really aligned here. But nonetheless, Dan Orlovsky's comp for Shedeur is Tua Tagovailoa. People are asking in the chat, here's why I don't – I've been saying this, Coach Fred. You think he's going to Vegas. And Joe Accord mentioned in the chat, and I've been talking about this. I think the Raiders are going Will Johnson at 6. I've been saying this for months. I have. And I said it for multiple reasons. But Pete Carroll is a defensive guy. And I said this a while ago. There's no way he passes on those two guys coming out of Michigan, whether it's Mason Graham or Will Johnson. But I think Mason Graham's probably going to go 5 to the Jags. If I'm being real with you, I think they need an interior defensive guy. And Mason Graham's that dude now. Don't get it twisted. He's a hell of a player. The Raiders also just released Jack Jones here, I think yesterday, JB's guy. But I think them bringing in Will Johnson in that secondary, Pete Carroll likes tall, lanky corners. I think Will Johnson could pair pretty well in that Vegas secondary. Yeah, are you dead set on Vegas taking a quarterback though, Coach Fred?
I am. Just because I just think the people in charge, the Davises, they're not quite like the guy in Dallas, but they're similar to the guy in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So why not make this splash, create this buzz? There's quite a few defensive guys. I think this is what they said, the deepest defensive draft in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some guys that they can get, I don't want to say wholesale, but there's some guys that they can get cheaper out of the first round to sew up those spots that they want defensively. But grabbing him in the first round creates the buzz, the hype, sells the tickets, baby.
Yeah, it does sell the tickets, Coach Fred. Yeah, that it does. And we saw, what was it, almost a year ago now, but it was a while ago. Shedeur, I believe, was at, a Las Vegas Aces game. And Mark Davis came up to him, said something like, "I'll see you soon," or something like that. Fast forward now. That was before they hired Pete Carroll, though. That's something to keep in mind, because I think Pete Carroll, if he was ever to become a head coach again, needed full autonomy. And so I'm sure he has at least something like that in Vegas. That's my thing here.
But there's certain families that you just know, even though they say that, families in ownership, Steinbrenners, the Joneses, in Vegas, they're not going to just sit back and not be involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's true. Especially the day, like you mentioned, the ownership. Davis specifically, I think he definitely hungry and desperate to win fast here. Especially the way after the John Gruden thing and the way that went down, it's been kind of a clusterfuck, so to speak, in Vegas the last few years. So yeah, I think they're definitely desperate to win here. Shedeur Sanders. Oh boy, Coach JB had a field day with this morning. Shedeur Sanders performed at Colorado's Pro Day, and social media has lost their minds again. First saying Shedeur passed the ball and how that's a huge problem. You saw Jets free safety, or former Jets free safety Andre Cisco, I believe his name is, come out and saying he basically is going to, every time he sees the ball patted, I'll read the quote actually. He says, "Boy, better stop patting that ball. We break on that early." So interesting development. But Coach Fred, did you get a chance to see any highlights of Shedeur at Colorado's Pro Day? Your thoughts on this at all? Does this mean anything to you? I know to many quarterback evaluators and evaluators of talent, it doesn't mean anything. But Coach Fred, what are your thoughts on Shedeur's performance at Colorado's Pro Day?
For little old me, it doesn't say a whole lot. I think this just kind of gives them, because nothing is it's simulated. I mean, this is what everyone says they hate to see, the 7-on-7 type stuff. This is what this essentially is, T-shirt and shorts. I've always said that the release to me was just a little like elongated, so to speak. And it's pretty much the same thing to me, but the arm talent, you got to say that it's there. I just like to kind of see it, but nothing in this is being sped up, as you can see.
Right. Yeah.
It's all very casual. So to me, to say that, and I know they're talking about the padding, but right there, it's almost like, there's no timing with the receiver. So he's just kind of waiting, then let it go. So it'll be interesting, but I mean, he showed that he can make all the throws. I think that's one of those things that everybody had already kind of anticipated and knew. Sure. I think once you get to a situation like that throw right there, Bailey, that was just so casual. That wasn't, and then behind the back, that wasn't I think that was what they said. That was one of the ones that they kind of rehearsed to end the pro day or whatever. So, again, I think he just kind of did what he did. If he doesn't participate, how much fire, how much heat does he get now? He participates. He doesn't speed himself up. He takes his time, which I thought was very, very smart and calculated. And I think that was just a move. Hey, I'm gonna participate, get off my back. I'm gonna show you I can make the throws. I have a strong arm, but nothing was sped up.
Right. And here's my
very casual.
Yeah, and that's here's the thing with Shedeur Sanders, that I think that him not going to the combine, him doing this and electing to do this, it's all Fred, he was throwing on air there, and everyone's saying he's patting the ball. Everyone is like everyone's nitpicking the shit out of it. If he goes to the combine, you know how many. I mean, let's be real. They're going to nitpick the shit out of him. I don't think he wants that, to be real with you. And I'm not trying to look at it from a prime sexual lens. I'm trying to look at it as a real lens here, not see or be biased and homer to Colorado. Like, this is real. Like, you're right. It's a controlled environment. It's definitely more comfortable him throwing with his receivers. It does put on the best look for him, which I think ultimately is the most important thing. Still, you're seeing those on social media nitpick it and go at it. Coach Fred, let me ask you, now that we know the Cleveland Browns are going quarterback at number 2, or are going not going quarterback, they're going Travis Hunter at number 2. Where does this leave Shedeur in all this? I've been a big proponent, and Joe Cord asked a question about my take on the Raiders in a second, but I don't think the Raiders are going quarterback. So, Coach, what do you think?
That's my LV. That's my
I don't see it, Coach.
That's my Las Vegas.
I don't see it, Coach. You think Vegas is the spot for Shedeur?
I do. I don't see any other spot, because I would have said New York, but then they invested in a lot of guys in the offseason.
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense. Everything else is kind of early on in their quarterback room. So I just, to me, that's got to be the pick. If the Jets don't do what they do with Justin Fields, that to me would have been a pick.
That was my early thought, yeah.
Yeah, but they go and, front load Justin Fields with a contract. I just don't I don't see that happening. The Steelers situation.
I'm not counting the Jets out of it yet. I will just say that. The
Oh,
reason I say this, remember, and I had Philip Dukes on. Shout out to Phil Dukes, Dukes of Scoops. He's the man. I had him on last week. And he's an Atlanta guy. He's a Falcons guy. And as you remember, last year, Falcons brought in Kirk, paid him a shit ton of money, and then drafted Michael Penix. And yeah, the rest is history. So I thought my sentiment was initially yours for a while. The more I think about this, I'm not going to count out the Jets out of this yet. I'm just not, because I think the Jets are desperate, really freaking desperate to achieve something, especially Aaron Glenn. And I know Aaron Glenn probably isn't going to hesitate at bringing in another guy just in case Fields is not the answer.